We are live. How are you all doing? I missed y'all. I know I was here last week, so you don't know that I missed you, but I was in California for the last 4 or 5 days. My brother got married. My baby brother got married. It was all of the happy tears things. I'm just gonna pull this up in the group while I'm giving you the rundown of my weekend. We went to Half Moon Bay. They got married in Pescadero. Pescadero, is that how you say it? There we are. I can see myself. And my husband and I stayed in Half Moon Bay, and that is part of where we spend our honeymoon. And I went to the beach every day. And the beach there, if you've ever been, sort of looks like Ireland. It's all kind of like the cliff, very cliff type beach. Went on a run or a walk every day at the beach. And I remember when we had our honeymoon there thinking, I wonder if we'll ever come back here because it's just like such a happy place for me. So nice to be there 3 years later, but this time for my brother's wedding, but also to get to go with my husband. Our anniversary is just like a week and a half ago, so the timing was really, really beautiful and fun there. Got to see lots of family. It was a beautiful, beautiful wedding, beautiful location. Said I was going to manifest a place out there as well as in New York City. I'm revising that manifestation. Oh, I got like weird lip gloss on me. Coming back to New York City. I'm very grateful to be back here. I forget how much I love the city. I think I'm just going to manifest being there, touching that ocean once per year or something like that. I don't know if I need a home there because I do appreciate what New York City gives me. Anyway, that is way too much, but sometimes it's nice to know what people are doing. That's what's been going on in my life. Today we are going to talk about the mindset that's helped me make 1.5 million in the past 5.5 years from one-on-one. I think we talk a lot about money mindset in our online space, and if you know me and you know my work, I sometimes get a little frustrated with the concept of money mindset. Not that I don't believe in it. I'm all about mindset. A lot of my work or the coaching framework I use with clients is clarity, mindset, strategy, and action. I'm a big believer that 80% of our results starts with our mindset. We absolutely also need strategy and action in business to get results. By the way, it's so weird. I'm wearing a tank top. It is warmer in New York City than it is in California right now. Very, very strange. Anyway, I digress. And so mindset's very important. And I find sometimes the whole idea of money mindset gets a little wanky in our space. And I think it can often be used unintentionally to, I don't know, make it seem like there's a secret or there's something missing or you need to like wait till you arrive to a certain place or till you're a certain vibe to be able to make money. And I just don't find that to be true unless the irony is, unless you believe that to be true. As soon as you believe that to be true, right? What we believe to be true, we tend to create to be true. Then that is the mindset that will play itself out. And that's all we're going to talk about today. But I think it's just so important to understand. I have seen through my own business and through clients' businesses, and I'm so sorry, there's so much background noise here today. Hopefully it's not all picking up here. But what I have seen to be true is you can be low vibe, can be going through hard things, and you can still get great results in business if you have a mindset that supports you to show up like a CEO and a strategy that supports you, and you have the belief that you can get results no matter what. You do not have to be high vibe 24/7 to get results. However, and this is maybe another nuance here. So I always like to think of money mindset instead of there's like a one magical secret mindset you need to have to make money. I think of mindset full stop as what is important. And when it comes to money, our mindset is just going to give us a lens through how we view money, what we tell ourselves to be true, and that's going to give us insight into how we view things overall. What I found to be true is when I look at my own business and my own results, of course, there's never just one thing, but there is one mindset in particular that has really supported my results in business. And I'm sorry, I'm so distracted. There's so much noise going on. I so apologize, y'all. I'm like a squirrel right now. I don't know if y'all can hear it here. Hopefully they're not like just destroying outside of my window right now. Maybe this is like recalibrating back to being in New York City. But there's one mindset really that has helped me to make more money in business, to keep more money, and to grow my wealth. And I think it is a concept that maybe you've heard before, but I think it's a concept that gets really misunderstood in our space. And so what I want to do today is break this concept down a little bit so it's really simple to understand, and just so we can talk about some of the nuance here. And I think if you understand this concept, it'll also help you to understand where to lean in, where to lean back, how to manifest more of the revenue we want. We're going to talk a little bit with this concept. One of the biggest regrets wealthy people have, and I bet it is not what you think, and it really ties into what I've seen help me create results in my business and what I see really support clients, as well as what I see hold back clients and hold back people in business. I think this is one of those ones. It really does affect your results so much, particularly as business owners. Then we're talk a little bit about how to find the sweet spot here so that this can work for you. And if you're at live, say hi, let me know. I always love to engage with you. And if you have any questions, please, especially with this one, because I do think it's a little bit more nuanced, let me know. So the concept I think that can get a little bit confused is we both hear that you need, the more you risk, the more reward, right? There's so many quotes about this, right? No risk, no reward. You have to risk it to get the biscuit. The biggest risk is not taking a risk at all. I think I sometimes say that. We talk about how important it is to step to the edge of your comfort zone. There's quotes about, what is it? Greatness begins at the edge of your comfort zone. Great things never come from comfort zones. I think there's even a book called The Comfort Crisis, which is not necessarily about comfort zones, but it's actually a very good book, but it's more about how in modern day society, we've just gotten so comfortable that that really is creating a crisis in so many different ways. So there's all of this talk, and I think there's really a narrative and a belief that the best entrepreneurs, really risk it. Like you have to burn the boats, if you've heard that concept before, right? You have to be super risk tolerant and burn the boats, quit your job, quit your 9 to 5, go all in. Right, we hear this narrative. And then on the flip side, if you're in the personal development space, the coaching space, the therapy space, if you're trauma informed, we talk a lot about the importance of creating safety. I know with my clients, I talk a lot about creating safety in their business, feeling more safety around the actions they're taking, a sense of safety with their finances. I know that's a lot of the work I've done as well. And these can feel like they are two diametrically opposed concepts, and it can feel very confusing as to sort of which one is it when it comes to getting results in business, growing your business, scaling your business, making money, making more money, keeping money, right? Growing your money. And I do think it is very, very confusing. And what I have found to be true, and this is, I've been in business now for 8.5 years. I have been making money consistently for 5.5, 6 years. So I've made 1.5 in the past 5.5 years. I was making money before that, but not tracking it as well. I've been investing my money for far longer. So for probably, since I was 21, 22. So I'm looking at this through the lens of both business and making money, but also investing money. And what I've really seen to be true is there's really an intersection here. And this is why this gets so confused, like so many things in business and in life, right? The pendulum tends to swing and we want to be so all or nothing, black or white thinking. And it is just rarely the case. And there is really an intersection. And that's what I want to break apart the nuance of. I'm going to give you quite a few examples and I'll give you some evidence as well. And then we'll talk about how to apply this a bit more. But really what I want us to start thinking about is both sides are true, but on their own, they can be really extreme and not serve you, right? If I'm just focused on risk and like you've got to risk it to get the biscuit, so to say, right? This is when we tend to be really reckless. And this is when we tend to do things like burn the boats, right? Which is quite a reactive and a reckless response. And usually when we're being reckless and reactive, we're not being strategic, we're not being grounded. There's definitely no safety there, but we're really relying on pushing, pressure, luck, right? We're relying on a lot of things that are outside of our control. And when I think about what creates for stability in business and what creates for stability with finances if you're investing, right? There's nothing about pressure. There's nothing about reckless behavior. I mean, that can generate results, but it is for as many people as it creates results. There are, this is a made up stat, but there are 10-fold or 100-fold more people who crash and burn, right? And lose it all. And I think that's why things tend to feel riskier than they are, because we think of risk as reckless. We think of risk as all in, put all the chips on one thing, right? Don't minimize the risk. We think of it as very all or nothing. And what I would offer is, I think for most of you, you're not going to be risk tolerant enough for that. And for most business owners, that actually isn't what's going to create big results, nor is that even going to be strategic. Adam Grant talks about this in The Originals, I think is the name of the book. And he talks about how the concept is that we think people who are the most risky get the biggest results. What they've actually studied is with some of the biggest companies, people who are minimizing their risk, right? They don't actually take as many risks, are who end up thriving, having the most long-term success. And they use Warby Parker as an example. And the I think it was 4 people. Don't quote me on that, but the people who created Warby Parker all kept their jobs, their corporate jobs or their 9 to 5s until Warby Parker was viable and profitable, which is kind of the opposite of this risky thing we're talking about. And I think that is actually the epitome of this intersection we're talking about. If we look at Warby Parker as an example, and I don't know all the details of their business, but we know they're quite a successful company. They have grown globally. They make a lot of money. They I think are a company that a lot of people really like the brand, right? We could go on and on about the company itself. And if we look at what the people who run Warby Parker had to do to get that up and going, right? They're in a competitive space. I'm sure they had to take quite a lot of risks, right, to make that company viable, profitable, to make it the brand and the business that it is today, right? I think we could just say factually there were a lot of risks they had to take. I'm sure there were a lot of big investments, a lot of big leaps, a lot of rooms they had to put themselves in, right? A lot of things outside their comfort zone and things that were literally risky to do. However, what they also did is they minimized that risk, right, by being really strategic with the choices they made, and also by creating safety for themselves by keeping their jobs to be able to continue to pay their bills, right, to be able to continue to regulate their nervous system, the things that they needed to create safety. And they didn't fully risk it all until they had some more evidence that this was a viable business and product. Let me know if this is making sense for you, if you have any questions. But I think that is really what we want to look at, and that's what I've seen in my business when I look at, how we've been sustainable. I start to lose track. I think it's 64, 65 months that I've made consistent 10 to 40K cash months. It's been 1.5 million. We've made consistent high multi six figure years for the past four years, I think it is. Right? And I only offer one-on-one. I don't offer anything else at this point. Maybe I will in the future. And we stay really consistent, even though the industry has not stayed consistent. We've definitely seen some really high highs and some really low lows, I would say, in the past year and a half. Yet my business has stayed really stable. And I think one of the reasons for that, and one of the biggest things that has helped me financially outside of business as well, I looked this up because I wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy, but I had an investment I made about a $5,000 investment, and just in 1 year alone, it's made me $28,000 additional. So it's worth, what is the math on that, like $33,000, something like that, in the stock market. So if I look at that and I look at my business and I look overall at my investments that continue to grow and continue to make me money and are growing at a great and steady pace outside of business as well as in my business, what I really see is the mindset behind that isn't that like I'm totally high vibe. It's not that I'm positive all of it. I mean, I am a very positive person, but I've gone through some hardship. I lost my dad, right? I've been in therapy for trauma and was diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety, and right, it's not like none of that existed, and it's because I like waited until I had healed all of my trauma and my dad wasn't sick and life was perfect, and then I started making money. This has all been happening alongside of that. And I mean, one reason there is I just don't believe that needs to impact my ability to serve humans, to show up in my business, to make money, right? That is a belief, that is a mindset, right? If I believed that needed to impact my ability to make money, I think that would be true. And what I've done the whole time is really understanding my risk tolerance and practicing titrating my risk tolerance, meaning, little drips and drabs at a time, stretching. I'm not naturally a very risk-taking human. I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit more than a lot of people. I guess I look at things like I moved to LA without ever moving there to act. So maybe I am a little bit more risk tolerant than a lot of people, but I wouldn't say I'm on the extreme side, especially when it comes to my finances. I'm very fiscally responsible. And if anything, I can, on the financial side, be a little bit more on the over safety, over hoarding side that can actually really minimize your chances for results. And I'm going to tie this on a little bit, but hopefully this will make sense. And what I've really had to learn to do, and what I really think has contributed to my success in business and my success financially, is learning how to titrate, right? So that I'm slowly expanding my risk tolerance, not just as a human with the actions I take, but also with my finances, while simultaneously minimizing my risk and learning how to create safety within that risk. And I'm going to explain all of this. But let me explain first how, before I knew how to do this, how that affected my money, so this will all make sense. And I promise I'm going to explain a little bit more of how to do this yourself. Please let me know if you have questions, because I do think this is a nuanced concept. So what I see for myself is, before I learned how to stretch my risk tolerance, right, that comfort zone, and create safety with that, and again, I will explain that more in a second, what I really saw is I did a lot in my business where I was taking action, but I was really holding myself back because I was just doing things to the degree that it felt 100% safe. And that's where this concept gets confused, right? We hear we need to feel safe, we need to create safety. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, then I need to do things that feel safe. So I'm just going to go to the edge of my comfort zone. But that meant, if we take a look at things like my content, right? My content, I was playing it a lot more safe. If we take a look at my investments, I was so scared to lose any money with an investment. So I was playing it really safe with my investments, whether that was, I was in like, I want to say it was like a $50 or $100 per month, like group membership or something, right? Like I was really scared to risk more money than that. Like I really wanted to keep myself safe. I had another example in here. Oh, with my investments as well. For the longest time, I just wanted to park my money in savings because I didn't want to risk losing any of my money, right? And so I was just operating I was still taking action, right? And this is again where I think it becomes really confusing, but to me, anything past that was going to be too risky, right? It wouldn't be safe. And I was really focused on like, how do I keep myself safe? But by only focusing on keeping myself safe, I was keeping myself in a bubble, right? Where I was able to get some results, but my results were really capped by my willingness to stretch past that risk tolerance zone. As I learned to titrate, right, slowly stretch my risk tolerance, and to do so in a way that wasn't reckless, right? I'm going to keep coming back to this. What I didn't do is have the pendulum swing and say, well, fuck it, this isn't working. I want to become a millionaire, and the way to become a millionaire is you got to be risky, and I'm going to be reckless, and I'm going to go get the most expensive coach in the world. I'm going to spend all my money. I'm going to quit my job, right? That would be reckless. That would be very reactive. That would actually be quite an emotionally driven decision. I don't think that's strategically risky. I don't think that's calculated risk. Calculated risk is quite strategic, right? Calculated risk is strategic that just opens you up to more financial reward or bigger rewards. That's if we think about, I always use fitness and health as an example. I think that's sort of like if I'm like, I really want to get into shape and compete, and I've just been kind of doing the bare minimum to keep myself safe so I don't like get winded at the gym. And so instead tomorrow, I'm just going to throw myself at doing backflips without a spotter and running barefoot down the street as fast as I can. I know this is a horrible example, right? I guess that would be risky, but that would just be reckless, right? That isn't actually calculated risk, strategic risk, where we're minimizing the downside and we are opening up the upside, but there's just some risk because there's no guarantee involved. And what I really have focused on instead is learning how to do exactly that, to stretch, to titrate the amount of risk I'm able to tolerate, and to do that by learning how to create safety in taking more risk. What I think happens is when we hear the term safety, you need to create more safety in your business, you need to create more safety in your nervous system, you need to create more safety in your finances. I think what most of us hear is that means I need to operate from a fear response of fight, flight, freeze, right? That's what I was doing before. I was creating safety by avoiding taking risk. I was creating safety by freezing and just parking money in a safety savings account. I was creating safety by not stretching, right? By not, like, that's, I guess, another freeze response, by doing just what felt really safe and comfortable. And I personally don't believe that is actually how we create safety in a way that is effective for creating results like money or really any results in our life. Instead, what I coach clients around and what I really like to think about myself, and this is where that intersection happens and what supported me for taking my business from, I was making 500, 800, 1,000 to 3,000 per month, and I jumped that up to 10K. The next month was a 24K month. After that, very quickly became 25 to 30 to 40K cash months consistently ever since. A lot of that, obviously there's different things, but a lot of that has been finding this balance here. And that's looking at what are the strategic risks, right, that stretch me in the right direction. Well, use the Warby Parker example, right? There were strategic risks they had to take because I know the more I'm willing to take a strategic risk, the bigger the reward on the other side. I only just started learning and running ads, say in the last 3 months, probably, maybe 4, right? That is a strategic risk, right? It's really not risky at all because it is strategic, but it's risky in that I'm doing something I haven't done before. I'm spending money. I have to spend money to test. When I spend money to test, right, I'm going to probably lose some of that before I have a return, right? I'm spending more money up front, but the upside, right, the higher the risk I'm willing to take there, the bigger the reward in terms of the results on the other side, which is very different than the reckless risk we're talking about, which would be I'm just going to gamble, or I'm not going to learn how to run ads, I'm not going to have a proven strategy, I'm not going to have a funnel that I've worked, and I'm just going to dump a bunch of money into ads and cross my fingers, or I'm going to buy a lottery ticket and hope I win money, right? One is risky, one is reckless risk, one is really strategic calculated risk. And with strategic calculated risk within that, if you're someone that isn't risk tolerant, this is where the safety comes in with how can you create safety in taking risk, not in avoiding risk. And so what I coach clients around is, I think so often what we want to do is we think safety is, again, fight, flight, freeze response, or I'm safe if nothing bad ever happens. I'm safe if I never fail. I'm safe if everything perfect happens. I'm safe if I never lose money. And that is not where this intersection happens, right? If your only safety can be created in never having something challenging, bad, a loss happen, you can't intersect your safety with stretching your risk capacity, right, for strategic calculated risk. Those worlds don't live together. However, if you can start to create safety in taking risk by seeing, well, if I'm really strategic and calculated, I can minimize my risk and I feel a lot of safety in that. Or if I am like Warby Parker and I know that I need to have a certain amount of money to pay for my mortgage, take care of my kids, pay for food. So what's going to help me feel a lot of safety in taking this huge risk, investing in a brand new business and startup, is to keep my job so I have revenue or I have income coming through the door until this other business is viable, making money. I can create a lot of safety there to go and take calculated risk, knowing I might not make money in this company for 3 years, or this might not give me results for 3 years, but that I have a lot of safety that I've created because I've created safety elsewhere. And this is a way in which safety, right, can live with risk, as opposed to safety only happens if we can get rid of any negative consequence of taking a bigger risk. Is this making sense? Let me know, because I feel like if you can understand this concept, this will change everything for you in business. I think about this with my coaching investment for sure, and just all the investments in my business. Every time we make an investment in business, I coach clients around this a lot when they're looking at team. We sort of have to take, investment is taking the risk and betting up front before the result. And we have to learn how to create safety in that by learning to trust ourselves, right? And to see that we're making calculated strategic risks. And the more we can do that and create safety within that, the more we minimize that risk. But also part of that creating safety is seeing, even if we make a bad hire, that we know how to figure that out. Even if we, in air quotes, lose some money, that there's still something we're going to gain from that, or that we can handle it, or there's a way that we can absorb it. It's not going to have us hit rock bottom. And when you can do that, you become really unstoppable, because this is when you stop slowing your results and your growth, because you start running at the very things that are going to help you exponentially grow and scale your business, that are really challenging to grow and scale without. But this is also when you stopping and starting, right? Because the truth is, anytime we are titrating our risk tolerance, we'll use ads as an example. I'm knock on wood, I have my ads are killing it. I have an insane cost per lead, but they're also converting at a really great rate on the back end. Like, right, it's all working. But for that to have happened, I first had to take that calculated risk and create safety around that. And I also had a couple of audience sets that didn't work so well, right? Where, I guess I brought some leads in and I never see it as a loss, but I definitely burned through, right? I had to be willing to risk some money and to risk some time. And there was a learning curve there, and I invested in a program and I invested in coaching, right? I had to be willing to risk all of that to get that great reward, right? And all of us just want this great reward without the risk. But for me, it didn't feel like a risk at all. It felt, very neutral, very stable, because it was a very calculated strategic risk. And I know how to create safety within that, because I knew whatever I was spending to test ads, for example, I had put that aside, right? I wasn't going to ruin my whole business or mean that I couldn't pay mortgage or pay for health insurance the next month, right? I knew that if they didn't work right away, right, it was going to take me a while to get this funnel working, which I think is pretty normal for any of you who are running ads or running funnels. If you're launching, right? I was just at the wedding. I want to make sure I don't say anything that will highlight who this was, but I was speaking to a very successful business owner as a multi-million-dollar business, and we were talking about funnels, and she was talking about how she's had a funnel she's been running for quite a while. She's still behind the scenes with her team, iterating on the funnel, refining that funnel, right? And so I think that is something, this is almost like a side note here, but I think we all just think we do something once and then it gets a result, and that said with so much love is not how business works, right? But we have to be willing to risk certain things, getting the coaching support. I invested a high level in a coach, getting the support with the ads, not that you have to run ads, but just as an example here. But I can minimize all of that risk by creating safety with either the financial investment or with the time. We're seeing ads, for an example. I'm not relying on ads in my business at all. They're a really nice asset tool in my business that I also want to use to future proof. I want to have that tool in my back pocket. I want to be able to help clients with it. But it's not like all of my eggs are in that basket. And if that doesn't work tomorrow for me, I'm effed, right? That would be reckless risk, as opposed to there's a lot of safety here that I've created with this risk where the reward is really high, but I've minimized the downside. And I think about investing in the stock market similarly. When I talked about that investment that I made and the return I got on that, that's amazing. And I probably shared this before, a year ago, I invested quite a large sum in a bunch of different stocks. I didn't really know what I was doing. Story for another day. I've learned quite a bit about dollar cost averaging since then, but point being, the next day the stock market had a big turn and I overnight lost essentially $20,000. And I had to learn how to create safety in that, but also how to take strategic actions and risk from that moving forward. And what I've learned since and what I've done since is I've recouped all of that, and what I said here, the $28,000 from just one stock alone. But for that to have happened, right, I had to learn how to create safety even when that wasn't happening, even when I had to wait a year for things to turn around. And I also had to learn how to both minimize the risk and have the upside, right? The reason that was able to happen is I was willing to learn how to make some investments outside of my safe investments, right, that are safer, that have a higher level of risk. So they have they have less of a level of reward, but less of a level of loss. For this big level of reward, had to look at where are the places that I'm not being reckless, but strategically, right, give me a higher level and chance of reward, probably a higher level of risk as well. But if I'm strategic and if I'm creating safety within that, I'm also going to minimize the downside to maximize the upside. Let me know if that's making sense. I just want to I'm just going to give a couple other examples here, but what I want to say again is with all of this, and again, I've just seen, I'll use investing in coaching, for example. So I was investing in that, $50, $100 per month membership, and then I invested in my coach, who I still work with 6 years later, and I've shared after the first 6 months of working with her, she's amazing. She's, I think, one of the best in the industry. I had started to see results, but not a ton of monetary results yet, because results take time. And I had a lot of mindset trash to work through. And I had a lot in my strategy to refine. I think it was more mindset side of things for me, but I see this through clients. And I was willing to take the risky bet on myself, even though I wasn't seeing a ton of financial return, to continue investing with her, because it was a strategic, calculated risk in which I was also able to create safety within, and safety being not I could guarantee that I was going to get results, not that I could guarantee that I wasn't going to fail, not that I could guarantee I wasn't going to lose money, but safety in that I could guarantee I trusted myself to get the most from the investment, and I trusted myself that I was going to figure things out, and if I lost everything, right, or if I didn't make my money back, that I would be okay, that I would figure out another way to make that money, and it was still the right investment for me. That's how I created safety for myself, right? And look, I mean, we could go into a whole conversation around that. And then with the risk itself, I really minimized the downside there by doing my due diligence, making sure I was working with a coach who was a good fit for me, making sure I showed up for my investment, making sure I trusted myself, right? Making sure I was doing my part for this, but also maximize the reward by, being willing to put a little bit more money on the line and a little bit more skin in the game, and to stretch myself far past what was comfortable at that time, because I didn't have the money to invest. I had to borrow a little bit, right, and get a little resourceful there. And so that's what that looks like. And that is really what that's an example of what I really saw then lead to big exponential growth and big results in my business, and making $1.5 million over the last 5.5 years. I've been working with my coach for 6 years, so you can do the math there, right? That happened starting in that second 6 months when I renewed. But what I didn't do is say, well, fuck it. Like, who cares? I've already spent this money. Let me just spend more. That is the reckless risk. That is reckless risk that isn't strategic, that isn't maximizing your gains and minimizing your losses. And that's not the kind of risk where you're really learning how to create safety for yourself within it, right? That would have been in some ways that's a fear response, but that would have been a very reactive, reckless response. And it would have technically been risky, right? And risking it and going all in. But I don't know that I would have gotten the same results from my investment with that mindset, especially without that safety created underneath, that stability created for myself. Similarly with the stock market example, right? If I had just been like, well, screw it, who cares? Let's just like keep throwing money at stocks. That would have been very reckless, not strategic, not minimizing the downside, not minimizing the upside. Instead, I really had to learn how to hold myself in that, but also create safety and seeing that what I invested was one very small part of my portfolio. I'm diversified. I'm learning the tools to dollar cost average, right? I'm understanding the market and seeing how things can turn around. The risky investments I make, whether it's that or crypto or something where it's a little bit more volatile, right, is making up, 10% of my portfolio. So not that I want to lose that, but I'm minimizing my overall risk and creating safety and seeing I have a lot of other safer, they don't have as much upside, but safer investments or money in other places, right? I have money in savings and places that I know I can live off of. So it's not like I'm going to lose everything and their bottom's going to fall out. And so I can then afford, right, that there's that intersection of I'm creating safety for myself, not safety of this has to work. I'm going to take this risk, put it all into this stock because someone told me this would make me a lot of money. But if not, I'm effed. But I'm like going to figure that like this has to work, right? But I'm going to make that risk, right? That's reckless. That's desperate. That's pressurized. As opposed to I can make the strategic decision. Of course, I'm doing so from the place of expecting this to work. I'm creating safety though, so I can also ride the wave because stock markets fluctuates, business fluctuate, results can take time. And that's what allows for that intersection to end up bringing you big results. In fact, had I not had that risk, the traded risk tolerance and strategic risk with that ability to create safety, I probably would have pulled my money out of that stock that I told you made me so much money. And I would have just lost on that one, I don't know, however much that was, I would have lost that money as opposed to making money because I had to basically park it and create that safety and ride a wave for it to turn around. And so I think that's just such a great example here that we sometimes forget. I had the same in business. I mean, that's the coaching example, right? If I had not created that safety there, I would have just withdrawn the risky, in air quotes, investment. And I know it's like sometimes the biggest risk is not risking at all, but it really would have been I would have created the biggest risk there because I didn't have the safety. I wouldn't have gotten the support and I probably would have stayed stuck at $500 or $800 per month to $3,000 per month. And I think here's the kicker. Both if I had done that for my investment in that stock or with coaching, I wouldn't have known the upside, right? Because that upside came with coaching, right, a year later. With that stock a year later, I wouldn't have known that return I would have gotten. And I would have just patted myself on the back and be like, well, that was super smart, like being super safe in air quotes and pulling my money out and not investing, right, and not doing the risky thing. That just saved me. But really what it would have done is cost me, what did I say, $28,000? And that's on top of the investment. So it was a $28,697 from that one investment alone, that one stock alone. That would have actually cost me that in loss, but I would have had no idea. And with coaching, oh my goodness, that would have cost me basically 1.5 million. I'm sure I would have made money in business anyway. I'm smart, and I learned some things, but I don't know. I probably would have a fraction of the money I do now because I've continued to find that titrated risk tolerance, right, to get support with that and to create safety and to find that intersection. So I think that's just that nuance there. And I want to keep saying this over and over again. I'm hitting you over the head with it, but I think it's just so important. It is finding that intersection and not seeing what is just the way to create safety as the way to avoid anything bad ever happening. I always coach clients this when we're talking about safety. It's more if the, in air quotes, bad thing happens, if you have the failure, if you don't get the result, if you lose the money, if the client says no, if your launch doesn't go the way you want it to, if the investment doesn't go the way you want to, how can you hold yourself through that? How can you create safety within that? How can you see that you can handle it, that you can tolerate it, that you can navigate it, that you will be safe and okay? That's the kind of safety we're talking about, not how do I make sure something bad never happens. When you can learn how to create that safety where you can handle something, right, where you can tolerate it, where you can tolerate the discomfort and sit through that while also not being reckless, but finding that strategic risk, and you find that intersection, that is what makes you unstoppable. Again, we'll use content. Hey, Alyssa, nice to see you here. Thanks for saying hi. well, I'll use content again as an example, just because it's a non-financial example, and sometimes that's easier to hear. I think content is such a great example. When you can learn how to create safety, and not in that everything I post everyone's going to like. Every time I post, I'm going to get a gazillion pieces of engagement. Every time I post, it's going to turn into a client. I will never ruffle feathers. Everyone will like what I post, right? That is not safety. That is perfectionism. That is avoidance. That is a really great way to create a lot of pressure. When you can create safety, and actually, I have safety and I know I can hold myself through a piece of content not doing well. I know I have safety in that I can regulate my nervous system even if I get a hateful comment, or even if someone doesn't like this, or even if I trigger someone, or even if someone tells me how much they disagree, or even if I post for 3 months and I don't get a client from it. I can hold myself in that and see that I will inherently be okay. And I trust myself to tolerate that discomfort. That's when you're unstoppable. That's safety. And when you marry that kind of safety with stretching, titrating your risk tolerance, right, which now you're getting a little riskier by saying the things you really think in your content, by taking your mask down in your content, by being strategically vulnerable, by maybe doing something on a reel that you wouldn't have usually, by stretching yourself, right? When you marry those together, that's when you start to have content where you're like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe the result I'm getting. And, you know, everybody looking from the outside in is like, I can't believe you're getting the results you're getting from your content. But that's why, right? It's because, yes, you have the risk tolerance, right? You've titrated that to stretch yourself to show up in a bigger way. But you've also backed yourself with true safety, not the kind of safety that I think we sometimes perpetuate in the online space, which is really avoidance and perfectionism. Kate says yes to safety. I know you get this, Kate. I know you get what I'm talking about with true safety, and not the avoidance safety or the perfectionism false sense of safety. And so it's that combo, and I want to keep saying it's that intersection, right? The more you can stretch your tolerance for strategic, calculated risk that maximizes the upside and minimizes the downside, and create safety for yourself to hold yourself through that, the bigger the reward in every aspect of life. And this is what I was going to close with. So my coach shared this with me. I was asking her questions about financial investments because that's, I don't know, can that be a hobby? I love financial investments. I always have. And I think there's just so much to learn there. Plus, I just like having my money work for me. But she was sharing, this was when I was starting to stretch more with my investments, because the more you stretch with your investments, right? Like the higher the risk, the higher reward, but also the higher the risk, the more you can lose. You have to learn. It's perfect example we're talking about here, right? You have to learn how to hold yourself in that to create safety. But historically, like I was sharing earlier, I've just been a hoarder where I just want to park money in a savings account because that feels very safe, but it's actually not very safe. It's actually quite risky, because at a certain point, you will miss out on all of the opportunity from interest you can gain with investing at a higher level. And you want some money. I'm not a financial advisor, but you want some money in savings liquid. But past a certain point, you really start to cost yourself long term, because your savings interest can't outpace the interest rates, and you really just start to cost yourself out in the gains you can make investing in other ways. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. Don't take financial advice from me, but this is something I really started to learn. I was great at saving, but really that risk tolerance on the other side, I wasn't. And so something my coach reflected to me, and this is a perfect button for this conversation. And I think this has just changed the way I think about this intersection we're talking about, and what has really helped me both to make 1.5 million, but also to grow wealth personally with my money. She shared she's part of, her grandmother is like in a wealthy country club type thing, and she goes there often to hang with her grandmother. I just need one sip of water. And I probably shared this before. And her grandmother, and like just what she's seen with all of these are like wealthy elderly people, 70s, 80s, 90s. And she was saying, the biggest regret they all have, and these are all very wealthy people, the biggest regret they have is that investment they didn't make. It was that investment that seemed kind of risky that they didn't make, that looking back, they could see everything they missed out on from not taking that investment. And I heard that, I was like, oh, that's just so fascinating to hear that, right? They none of them regretted the investment, the risky investment they made that lost them money. And if you're wealthy, it's pretty much impossible to get truly wealthy without making investments where you both lose and gain, right? If I look at my investment portfolio, not only does it kind of go like this up, but it's trending upwards, but a lot of mine are in the red and a lot of mine are in the green. and the greens are outpacing the reds, right, to trend it upwards, and over time it's going to grow. But it's not like, I have some bombs in there, and then I have some really big growth, right? So anybody who's creating true wealth, like it's, I don't know, Warren Buffett, maybe his whole thing is like the best investment advice is not to lose money, but you're just going to have some losses. Like that's just part of the game, right? It's just like in business, you can't succeed in business without having failure. Welcome to being in business. Like that's just the game we're all playing. We're just looking at how do we minimize the losses and failures? How do we maximize the success and growth? And how do we mine those losses and failures for results? How are we not reckless? How are we strategically risky, right? But I just think it's so fascinating that those wealthy elderly people, none of them are like, oh my gosh, I really regret that one investment I made that lost me X amount of money. They regretted the investment they didn't make. And that is what I just think about in business. I think about that with my finances. I think about that with my life and the choices I make. And again, coming from the place of hearing risk to mean not to mean being reckless, right? Being reckless is not being strategically risky. Being reckless is the pendulum swinging. That is being reactive. But I think reckless and being overly concerned with safety in terms of really being in a fear response, fight, flight, freeze, right? Both of these aren't really what we're talking about. They are just polar extremes, really, of the same thing, right? Reckless, in some ways that's a fight or flight response, right? They're just polar extremes. And instead, really seeing what is in the middle here of that strategic, calculated risk, right? Where we're minimizing the downside, maximizing the upside, and creating safety within that to show up for it, to tolerate it, to know that we can handle it even if it doesn't work out, right? To create safety within the discomfort, to create safety tolerating the risk, to create safety tolerating those gap periods or those periods where like, what's going to happen? That is the sweet spot. And I think that's where you don't have regret in your business, in your life. And I think that's where we also set ourselves up for the biggest results. And I would say that is the mindset, not being high vibe. I'm all for being high vibe, but you do not have to be high vibe to make money. I promise you. It is helpful. It definitely doesn't hurt. It definitely makes everything a whole lot easier when you're high vibe, but I promise you can make money even when you're not. But I do think it is really tough to make great money in business if you're not starting to practice the mindset of finding that intersection of risk tolerance, healthy risk tolerance, with creating safety for yourself. I do think this is the mindset of all mindsets that sets you up for everything you want. So I hope that is valuable for you. I know, again, this was a bit nuanced, so if you have questions, let me know. I always want to make sure that these concepts land, and I also want to make sure I'm sharing the things that have helped me, because I think this is something, I don't know that I would have, this is something I just recently was really thinking about. I don't know that years ago I would have realized this is something that helped me so much, but the more I know, success leaves clues, right? The more I can see what has supported me, the more I'm able to do more of it and benefit from that, and the more I know I'm able to support my clients with that. So again, I hope this is valuable for you. Let me know if you have any questions. I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning of our live stream. I do have one one-on-one spot opening up in November. So if you would like support learning how to strategically find the strategic calculated risk steps in your business, but to minimize those because they are strategic, because you are being backed by someone who understands the online space and what's working right now, and who knows how to hold you and to support you with creating a sense of safety and to help you ride the waves of business so that you can create your own big results, whether that's 6-figure years, 7-figure years, 5-figure months, 6-figure months. I've supported clients to all of the above. I'm really great at what I do on both the strategic side of things and the mindset side of things. And mindset in the sense of what will really support you, not mindset that's just going to have you have some toxic positivity that doesn't support anything. I love being there for my clients and holding them through all the things, and also really challenging and stretching them so that they can create those big results. So if that's you, if you're curious about what it would look like to work together, I will drop a link for a free coaching consultation. I'm looking for the right client who's ready to grow their business to 6 or 7 figures. I work with clients at every stage of business, so don't hear that to mean, oh, Kim only works with people who are already making a lot of money. I have taken clients from literally zero to $1 million. I've taken clients from 0 to 6 figures and everywhere in between. I love working with new business owners as much as I love working with clients who are already making multi-6 and 7 figures. Business is business. I really understand both sides of it and the nuance as you reach different sides. So I'm really looking for the right client who wants to partner with a coach and really wants someone in it with them to support them along the way to, yes, create a strategy that works for you, but understands and wants someone to help you refine that strategy to get those results, and then really want someone to hold them in and just the personal stuff, so you can create that safety, the true safety we're talking about. So if that's you, I'll drop a link for free coaching consultation. I've had people tell me these calls are worth $1,000 alone because of the insights they've gotten. So I think it's worth taking me up on that. Got one spot opening up in November. I don't know if we have anything opening up in December. And then I just booked another VIP day. So I realize I don't talk about those very often, which means my VIP days are sold out for 2024. I have one that we've booked in 2025 already. So I have one VIP day if you want to come to New York City and spend 8 hours together coaching, mapping out a strategy we'll get to implement. We'll actually help you put things into place together. You want to get spoiled by me, get some beautiful gourmet food, get nice views of New York City at Soho House. I've got one VIP day available for the first quarter of 2025, and then I don't have another one available until fall of 2025 because those other ones have been booked. So those are my opportunities to work together. If that sounds like you, take me up on a free coaching consultation. Love you all so much. Next week we've got a good conversation next week, and it's also fun because I made it Halloween themed, but it's a good one. All right, I love you all. See you next week. Bye.